should be the next Marvel character to appear on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. This week was the season 4 premiere of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and the headliner was the Robbie Reyes version of Ghost Rider appearing on the show. Now, I wasn't quite sure how to feel about this at first because Ghost Rider doesn't feel like a really good fit for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. However, I enjoyed the episode, and I especially enjoyed how they depicted Ghost Rider. If you want more of my thoughts on that, tune into the next episode of my podcast with Sam Basher, Only Stupid Answers, which comes out next Monday. But for now, that got me thinking about what other Marvel characters I think might be a good fit for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. There are plenty of Marvel B-listers and C-listers that are great characters but aren't necessarily marquee enough to make it into the movies. It might be a better fit for the TV world of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Now, first up is a character I brought up in last week's video as I discussed the fact that Steve Rogers abandoned his shield at the end of Captain America Civil War, and that is John Walker's U.S. agent. Listen, I know Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. doesn't have the budget to put Chris Evans on the show, but that shield prop, that can show up. So now that the shield is back in the custody of the U.S. government, why not give it to a character like John Walker, who could definitely show up on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. That would tie in well with the themes that the show is exploring right now as the U.S. government takes more control over the superpowered community, and tie it closer to the movies and make it feel like a more vital part of the MCU tapestry. If you want more of my thoughts on what should happen to Steve Rogers next and what they should do with the shield and U.S. agent on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., tune into last week's video. You can click right here. Another character I'd like to see is kind of in the same vein. With so much talk in the season 4 premiere of more government control over the superpowered community, why not reintroduce audiences to the Iron Patriot on the small screen? We last saw the cinematic version of the Iron Patriot armor being driven by Iron Man's faithful friend James Rhodes, but he's thankfully returned to the War Machine identity. Again, Don Cheadle might be a stretch for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s budget, but what about the Iron Patriot armor? In the comics, we're going to get a new Iron Patriot in the upcoming US Avengers comic. So they could really put anybody in that armor, and we'd have an Iron Man-like character flying around in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. That would be cool. And who's to say that whoever's piloting the Iron Patriot should be a good guy? In the comics, it was originally Norman Osborn. And who wouldn't love to see the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. team try and go toe-to-toe with somebody with all of Iron Man's abilities? Alright, now we're going to dive a little bit deeper into Marvel lore. What about classic Avenger Hercules? If Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. can get its own shield wielder, an armored Avenger, why not its own god? Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. had a few times with Thor with mixed results. The best ones were with Sif, but right now Sif actress Jamie Alexander is making her own TV show on NBC. Hercules is a fun, bombastic character that can go toe-to-toe with the Hulk and is a casual rival of Thor in the comics. So I think he'd be a really great addition to the show. And if you introduced him, it wouldn't be a stretch to get Ares and his son Phobos as well. Ares also served on the Avengers, and Phobos was part of the Secret Warriors, a team that was touched on last season. Starting to seem like not too much of a stretch, right? And maybe you could do a fun twist with the Olympian gods by not having them be aliens, but maybe having them tied closer to the Inhumans, which I guess are tied to aliens. I don't know, maybe they could be mystical. We're starting to dive more into that world with Ghost Rider and Doctor Strange. Either way, it'd be cool to see the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. cast bump heads with the classic Greek demigod. Me and Hercules would definitely not get along, and I can imagine a lot of fun interactions between those characters. Next up, it's not long before any genre sci-fi adventure show goes in a more Lord of the Rings-esque fantasy adventure, but Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. could do it in a really cool way by introducing the Black Knight. Now, there's a bunch of different Black Knights ranging from the Middle Ages to the present day, but the character has ties to Arthurian legend, and most of them wield the cursed ebony blade. I'd personally like to see them interact with the more modern Dane Whitman version of the character, who in the comics is a long-running member of the Avengers, and also usually rides a winged horse. Now, if you're thinking, man, that's way too weird for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., get out. Now, if you're thinking, how are they going to afford that on a TV budget week in and week out? Good point. Dane Whitman has also been known to zip around on a hover bike, and instead of the ebony blade, occasionally uses a lightsaber. Now, it's not really a lightsaber, but it looks like one. And it could be. Disney owns the rights to both Marvel and Star Wars. Point is, Black Knight is a cool character that would be fun to explore on a show like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Now, the last person on my list is classic comic book S.H.I.E.L.D. agent Jimmy Woo. Jimmy hails from back in the day when Marvel was known as Atlas Comics and is basically an Asian American James Bond. And honestly, that's why he'd be such a cool fit for the show. Not only is he a smart, fun, clever spy, but he could also add representation to a group that the MCU has woefully underserved. Usually, if an Asian American shows up on a comic book property, there's some sort of kung fu master and that's about it. Even Agent May, who's a great character, is primarily known for her fighting prowess. Now, don't get me wrong, I'd love to see a character like Shang-Chi show up on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but I think Jimmy Woo is a more well-rounded character and a better fit for that show. Marvel also grouped Jimmy with a bunch of other Atlas characters to form the Agents of Atlas, and honestly, I'd like to see that whole team on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. That team is comprised of robots, Atlanteans, and a soldier-turned-talking gorilla. That's right, I'm talking Gorilla Man. Hell, every superhero show at this point should have a talking gorilla. Grodd did wonders for The Flash. Why can't Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. have Gorilla Man? Let Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. get get in on the talking guerrilla action. Truthfully, I'm hoping that the inclusion of Ghost Rider is the start of a trend with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. to include more of the weirder characters from all corners of the Marvel Universe, characters like Gorilla Man and the Black Knight. A willingness to embrace the campier along with the more serious elements from the comics has really made the CW DC shows pop, and I'd love to see some of that energy on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Alright, that's it for me. What Marvel characters would you like to see appear on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.? What did you think of their take on Ghost Rider? And don't forget to tune in every Monday to my podcast with Sam Basher, Only Stupid Answers. You can check us out on iTunes, Audio Boom, Google Play Music, and a bunch of other platforms. Alright, have a great weekend.